and something supernatural happens, and it's just, what? Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jason White. This is Jason's Weird Reads. Thank you for joining me, and if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, especially if you like horror fiction. And I also talk about science fiction, fantasy, and other genres, but I mostly talk about horror. And leave a comment in the comment section and we'll discuss some books. Alright, so this is part 2 of recent reads, number 4. Wow, that was a lot to remember. Alright, so let's get right into it because I have another 8 books here to read. So first, I read Relaunch, Your Novel by Chris Fox, and this pretty much sounds exactly... this is pretty much exactly like what it sounds like. You know, it's not exactly fantastic or entertaining reading. I'm currently in the process of relaunching my novel, and I just wanted to know about the best strategies of doing so. And so I thought this book would help me out, and it definitely would. But as with some of the other books I'm going to be talking about down below here, these writing nonfiction books, it's probably best to get a physical copy or an ebook copy, because you really need to be able to highlight things so you can go back to them when the time actually comes to do the thing that you're reading about. Because I listened to this one on my Audible account. It's like $6, so I was like, oh, and I clicked buy. But now I regret that. Well, I can just rebuy it in another form, of course. But yeah, definitely get like a physical book or an e-copy if you need to read something like that. I also read Productivity for Authors by Joanna Penn. One reason why I like reading Joanna Penn's nonfiction books about writing is because she always makes you feel good about yourself and about your writing, and that's always very appreciated. And she goes through a list of things that you can do to help yourself be productive. It's basically strategizing to set yourself up to be successful in whatever it is you want to do. And that leads me into the next book, Successful Self-Publishing by Joanna Penn. Again, I recommend get the audio version, because these types of books by Joanna Penn, they can be very motivating, I think is the best word. But also get like a physical copy or an ebook copy so you can do those highlights and bookmarks, check what you need to remember to come back to. But I listened to this and it's very good. I really recommend it, especially if you want to know how to strategize your writing career and how to make money. So, it's just, the part of the title is successful. So if you want to become a successful self-publishing author, then this is one book you probably need to read. Alright, I also read Diving into the Wreck by Kristine, Kathryn, Rusch. I believe I talked about this on Dane Cobain's radio show. That was a lot of fun talking to Dane. I'm going to read you the synopsis here. Boss, now that's the character's name, Boss. Boss loves to dive historical ships. Derelict spacecraft found adrift in the blackness between the stars. Sometimes she salvages for money, but mostly she's an active historian. She wants to know about the past, to experience it firsthand. Once she's dived a ship, she'll either leave it for others to find, or file a claim so that she can bring tourists to dive it as well. It's a good life for a tough loner, with more interest in artifacts than people. One day, Boss finds the claim of a lifetime, an enormous spacecraft, incredibly old, and apparently Earth-made. It's impossible for something so old, built in the days before faster-than-light travel, to have journeyed this far from Earth. It shouldn't be here. It can't be here, and yet it is. Boss's curiosity is up, and she's determined to investigate. She hires a group of divers to explore the wreck with her, the best team she can assemble, but some secrets are best kept hidden, and the past won't give up its treasures without exacting a blood price, or a price in blood. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. It's actually very interested in how it's laid out, because I came to this book twice. I read the first part of this book is actually released as an ebook. I believe she split them all up into little ebooks, and I imagine that's just a marketing strategy, but I read the very first part and I really liked it because it really delves into weird science fiction horror, especially when they enter that spacecraft. I'm not going to say why, but it's really interesting. But by the end, the whole weirdness aspect goes away because it's explained, and there's still some weirdness there, and there's some hard science fiction in the whole thing. Overall, I really enjoyed reading this book, and I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to read science fiction. But it wasn't as mind-blowing as I wanted it to be. It felt kind of rushed in parts, and even though I'd recommend it, I don't think it'll make the top 10 list at the end of the year, is what I'm trying to say. It's still good, though. Still a lot of fun. All right, moving on. I read Meg by Steve Alten. Now, I read this with Bex from Out of the Bex. I'll link her channel up here and down there. We read this over on Instagram with some of her Instagram friends, and we had a lot of fun talking about this book. So here is the synopsis. On a top secret dive into the Pacific Ocean's deepest canyon, Jonas Taylor finds himself face to face with the largest and most ferocious predator in the history of the animal kingdom. The sole survivor of the mission, Taylor is haunted by what he's sure he saw, but still can't prove exists. Megalodon, I probably butchered that. The massive mother of the great white shark. The average prehistoric Meg weighs in at 20 tons and could tear apart a Tyrannosaurus Rex in seconds. Taylor spends years theorizing, lecturing, and writing about the possibility that Meg still feeds at the deepest levels of the sea, but it takes an old friend in need to get him to return to the water, and a hotshot female submarine pilot to dare him back into a high-tech miniature sub. Diving deeper than he ever has before, Taylor will face a terror like he's never imagined. Meg is about to surface, and when she does, nothing and no one is going to be safe. And Jonas must face his greatest fear once again. So this book, there's nothing special about this book. Again, it's not going to make the top 10 list at the end of the year, but I had a lot of fun reading about it, but I think I had even more fun talking about it on Instagram with Bex and her friends there. I can't remember their names, and I'm sorry for that. There is one part of this book that will stick with me forever, though, and if you don't want a spoiler, then skip ahead 10 or 20 seconds, but there's a part where a person gets eaten by the Megalodon, and he doesn't know what's going on because he was surfing, I believe. And suddenly he's like trapped in this thing, and then he realizes where he is, and the Megalodon uses its tongue to push him towards its teeth while he's trapped in its mouth. And I just pictured being in that situation, and it's just awful. Yeah, I don't ever want to find myself in the mouth of some giant creature. So this book actually is a lot gorier, I'd say, than the movie adaptation, and there's a lot more to the book. But in all honesty, I think I'd prefer the movie over the book. The book is okay. It's just sometimes it goes on about things that aren't really necessary, in my opinion, and it had that strong sort of this is an action horror movie with like all the one-liners and whatnot. It's fun for what it is, but I'd recommend it if you like that type of thing. Alright, moving on. I listened to this one, A Foster Homes and Flies by Chad Lutzke. And this is about a neglected 12-year-old boy does nothing to report the death of his mother in order to complete or compete in a spelling bee, a tragic coming-of-age tale of horror and drama in the setting of a hot New Orleans summer, or New Orleans. So this book was, first of all, I love this book. It's Chad Lutzke, and it feels like a Chad Lutzke book, but the reason why I hesitate when talking about this book is that I listened to the audiobook, and I can't remember, obviously, typically me, I can't remember the name of the narrator, and it's not that the narrator is bad. No, the narrator is actually very good, but the kid in this story is like 12 years old, I think, and the narrator sounds like a guy in his 50s or 60s, and it just didn't, it's in the first person, and so this is the book here. I actually have the physical copy, but yeah, it just didn't make sense, honestly, for an older man to read a very young man, to read his narrative of the story. And also, I want to mention, like, the synopsis here makes it sound like the main character is a cold son of a bitch. His mom dies, and he just leaves him there so he can compete in a spelling bee. It doesn't quite, there's reasons. If you don't want to be spoiled, wait until this book goes away. When it's gone, it means I'm done talking about the spoilery parts. But, you learn pretty early on that the kid's mother in this story is not nice to her son at all. It's her only son, too, I think. And she treats him like shit, basically. He even finds, after she dies, he even finds a letter in her purse about how she doesn't love him and wants him to go away. And she's an alcoholic, and it's just not, you kind of get the reason why he would, and it's not as though he's not upset. He is upset about everything that happens in regards to his mother dying, and including the parts where he learns that she didn't love him at all, and even though she pretty much showed him while she was alive, she didn't love him or appreciate his existence. And so she's a horrible person who pretty much reaches the end that she needs to come to. She's a very bitter person who probably just didn't enjoy life at all and just wanted to die. And she pretty much drinks herself to death. And it's very tragic all around. And of course he wants to go, and it's one thing he's good at, spelling. He wants to compete in the spelling bee, and he meets a person there, and he becomes very close with, well, maybe not very close with, but he becomes close with. And actually this book, as another spoiler, has a happy ending, so that's kind of rare, I think, for Chad Lutzke. But I really enjoyed this, and I want to read it, the physical copy, because, like, damn, look at that print. I always go on about the print, but I like bigger print. I hate it when the print is, like, minuscule. So whoever did the layout for this, awesome job. So yeah, definitely highly recommended. This might make the top 10 at the end of the year. I don't know, we shall see. And I also, two more here. I read during the summer while I was on vacation, I read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This book is wow. Alright, let me read the synopsis here. Seamlessly blending classic horror and a dramatic narrative with sharp social commentary, The Only Good Indians follows 4 American Indian men after a disturbing event from their youth puts them in a desperate struggle for their lives. Tracked by an entity bent on revenge, these childhood friends are helpless as the culture and traditions they left behind catch up to them in a violent, vengeful way. So this book, it's split up into like 4 or 5 parts, and each of those parts has a character that you follow. It's like the 4 characters that was mentioned in the synopsis. The first part of this is actually my favorite, and the first 2 parts actually. I absolutely love the first part. It's it tackles racism and what it's like to be targeted as an indigenous man who's at a bar drinking. makes a mistake. Actually, he doesn't even make a mistake. Something happens, and of course they blame him. And something supernatural happens, and it's just, what? It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. And the second story was really awesome too, because I really fell in love with the characters in the second part. And you know, when the bad thing, actually this whole section is quite gory, and this is, I believe, yeah, you do learn what that haunting thing is that happened in the past with these four characters, what that is exactly. And Stephen Graham Jones does a fantastic job at making this into the beast it is. It is a slasher book because there is like a slasher aspect to it, and it's very horrific. Like, I didn't think this would be that much of a horror story, to be honest with you, but while I was reading it, I was like, wow, this is really this is an ode to a lot of horror that's out there. You can tell that Stephen Graham Jones is a huge horror fan, obviously, because he writes horror, but he packs a lot of stuff in here, and he mixes it with the whole, his tribe, Blackfoot. I believe that's what I believe that Stephen Graham Jones is a Blackfoot, and the characters in here are Blackfoot, and he takes their sort of traditions and he mingles it all together with these horror aspects, and it's just incredible. I absolutely love this book. This book definitely will make the top 10 at the end of the year. I highly recommend it. Don't go into it expecting it to be all crazy gore and nastiness. You got to get to know the characters first before, and care about them before the bad stuff happens. And trust me, they do happen. It's a lot of fun. Definitely pick this book up. It's phenomenal. Alright, lastly here, I read, having read this book, I was on a Stephen Graham Jones kick, so I went and read Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones, and this one I didn't like as much as The Only Good Indians, but I still really enjoyed it. The one reason why I didn't like it quite as much is because it confused the hell out of me at first, because you got the same characters in different timelines, and they keep switching back and forth between chapters, and I was just like, what the hell's going on at first, until I realized what the hell was going on. So here is the synopsis for that. He was born an outsider, like the rest of his family, poor yet resilient. He lives in the shadows with his Aunt Libby and Uncle Darren, folk who stubbornly make their way in a society that does not understand or want them. They are mongrels, mixed blood, neither this nor that. The boy at the center of Mongrels must decide if he belongs on the road with his aunt and uncle, or if he fits with the people on the other side of the tracks. For 10 years, he and his family have lived a life of late-night exits and close calls, always on the move across the South to stay one step ahead of the law. But the time is drawing near when Darren and Libby will know if their nephew is like them or not. And the close calls they've been running from for so long are catching up fast. Are catching up fast. Everything is about to change. A compelling and fascinating journey. So this story is basically about it's a coming of age story, and you learn pretty, like, on the first page, I believe, pretty early on, that it's a werewolf story. It's a family of werewolves, and the main character, who's the young one, who's following his aunt and uncle around in RV, he has yet to change into a werewolf. And so the whole thing kind of reminded me of that Hotel Transylvania, the cartoon that Adam Sandler does, the one where they have the baby and he has yet to become a vampire. But this is completely different. This book goes into some very dark territory, and it's a fascinating read. It's almost not a horror. It's very family driven and very this is how we live type of book, and I absolutely loved it for those aspects. There's a lot of family tradition in this book, within this family of werewolves, and it's fascinating for that. I really enjoyed my time with Stephen Graham Jones and this family of traveling werewolves. Alright, so that is it. I think I've rambled on long enough for this. Thank you for joining me, and if you've gone this far, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. So keep being safe out there. Things are getting scary. They have been for a long time. But you know, the whole coronavirus thing, the numbers are getting big again. So we gotta take care of each other. Be kind, because kindness is not only free, it makes you feel good. And keep being creative. I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.